Good morning, everybody. To all those that are hopefully on here later, will hear this. I think that we're going to have to do the same thing again because I'll be out of town next week. So we might have to do another double shiur the following week. Unless we can make it up during the week, but that'll be during Hanukkah. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, so we have a lot to cover here. I just want to first start with the Hakdama to make sure that we all understand the terminology, we're all on the same page. And the Mishnah Berurah and all the Nusach Kelim and Shulchan Aruch pretty much all start with Hakdama to these halachas, that to specify that we have three different type of arrangements we're going to be dealing with throughout these halachas. So as long as we have that clear, it'll help a lot as we go along to know what the halachas are and what the machloksim are. So the first type of arrangement that you have with a worker is a sachir or a schir yom, which will define that as a day laborer, either a day laborer or an hourly wage. He has an hourly wage or a daily wage that he's paid. That's the sachir, the schir yom. And that, with regards to Shabbos, is the most problematic relationship because you're paying him for the hours or the day he's working on Shabbos, specifically for that day. So that's most of the gzeras or a lot of these halachas over here, sometimes they're going to be usher, certain arrangements are going to be usher me'ikar din, which we'll speak about after. Some are usher only because of maras ayin. The maras ayin is always going to be maras ayin of, it looks like a schir yom. That's like the prototype. That's the benchmark of what is problematic, is the schir yom, or just the sachir. The second type of arrangement is the kablan. A kablan will translate as a contractor, or it's the type of work he's doing is contractual labor, which means that it's job related, not time related. A kablan, generally speaking, is removed from the whole concept of time. You're not paying him for his time or for his hours. You're paying him for a particular product that he's supposed to produce or a particular service that he's supposed to provide. So there's a defined specific service that he's supposed to do for you. Let's say, for example, dry cleaners is an example of a service. They're not creating something for you, but they're doing a service. They're cleaning your suit. Or another one would be mail delivery. You're not paying him by the hours of walking or you're not paying for his time or anything like that. You're paying for the delivery of a letter from point A to point B. That would be a kablan type of service. Or a product would be if you go to a tailor to tailor a suit, to make for you a suit. So that, again, you're not paying for their hourly wage, you're paying them for the suit. The suit has a certain cost and you pay for the suit. And another example of that would be, which we're going to have different days in the postgame about, is if you have what very commonly done today is a contractor for a building. For a building or a contractor for repairs in your house, that you're paying for the particular repair, for putting on a new bathtub, or it could be also a plumber. You pay him a certain amount to change out the garbage disposal, or to fix the toilet, fix the leak. You're paying for the fixing, like he says, a set price. And he might find out that it takes a lot longer than he thought it would because there's other unexpected things that are there. But it doesn't make a difference because you're not paying by the hour, you're paying by that job, and you set a price for that job. Now, there is an exception to that, which the kabbalan situation that's going to be the example of, as we see in the postgame, the kabbalan example, the contractor is not considered to be working for you, but he's really working for himself. He's getting paid by you. Yes, he's doing it for you, but any particular time that he chooses to work, he's not doing it because he's getting paid for those minutes, or there is any reason from your side that he's working on this day or that day. It just, he might be doing it, putting in extra hours to get it done quicker, but it's going by the job. Now the post can say, and this is what I saw the name Shlomo Miller, based on the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Mem Zion, that in Sif Gimel, that sometimes you can pay a person by extra, let's say you contract somebody to build a house. So they have an approximate amount, but they say that if it costs extra days, it's going to take extra days. It's going to be calculated by this and this and this for the extra days, which means, so he said that since if he never finishes the house or the suit or whatever the case may be, you don't have to pay him. So that shows you're not really paid by the hour, you're still paying by the job. It's just that sometimes paying by the job is a difficult thing to calculate what the price of the job should be. So sometimes the worker will factor in the days that it takes, or the hours that it takes to do it, to be kovea what the amount should be for that job. It's still for the job, not for the hours or the days. It's just that's a convenient way for the worker the Kabbalah to calculate what that amount should be for the job. So the fact that he's going to calculate by days, but you don't have to pay him if he doesn't finish the product. If you're supposed to make for you a table, and he can't, not really sure how to charge you for it. So he says, I'll see how many days it takes me, then I'll tell you how much I'm going to charge you. If he never finishes the table, no matter how many days he put into it, you never have to pay the guy, because you're paying not for the hours, you're paying for that table. So it's still for the product, it's still for that outcome that you're paying for, not for the time that he's working. It's just a calculation. So that's why Shlomo Miller is actually based on a Reish from Zion Gimel, which we'll see later on. That's when you pay somebody for, if someone's a tax collector, and then you hire somebody to collect the taxes for you on Shabbos. So over there's a heter for it. Shas Tzchak it's considered Makam Hesed if you don't get that day in, but he's really not, you're not paying for the day of work, you're paying him for the taxes that he collects. And over there we build out this yisod that sometimes even time will factor in, but it's not paying for the time, just a way of calculating the product, the price of the product, or that work to make the product. So so again, category number one is Shir Yom or Sachir. Category number two is Kablan. So the first one is a day laborer or just an hourly laborer, and the second one is a contractor for a particular service or job or product. And the third is Arisus, which the classical translation of Arisus is a sharecropper, which the sharecroppers used to get Miksa Shlish Ravia, that it's your field and it could be even your seeds and everything like that, but the guy's going to do the work on the field, which is the main thing, the plowing and the work and everything, and tend to the field, and he's going to get, since you provided the field and you provided the seeds and everything, so he'll get half the produce that comes out that grows, or a third or 3/4, depending on what arrangement you make with him. So we'll call that a profit sharing agreement. Profit sharing agreement. And we had a machlokas. Remember in Tosas, we had a machlokas that according to the Ram in Tosas, so the profit sharing has to be dafka, something that comes out of like the field. It can't be money. Sharing money is not considered sharing the produce. But many other poskim, and we'll see throughout the Rishonim, that those that are matir be'etzem ikar din to have a risus by a merchatz, the bathhouse, or some of the other cases we've had over here, that they say that if the worker is going to take a percentage of the money that is made that day, each day, it's your merchatz and your wood and everything like that, but the guy that runs it, so he gets a third of the daily profits. So many Rishonim are cholok on the Ram. The Ran brought that as well. The Ran brought another Rishonim. There are Rishonim that say this way, that you need dafka teres, not money, because money always looks like you're paying Sker Yom Mitzad Marasayan. But many Rishonim hold otherwise. They hold that the teres, the concept of teres is not a ironclad, and it's not a paraduma of dafka paris. It could be whatever the paris of that thing are. So the paris of a merchatz are the money that it produces when you have people use it. So taking a percentage of that is considered also a profit sharing agreement, and it looks that way as well. It doesn't look like you're paying him as a sacher. So those are the three categories that we're dealing with over here throughout these halachos, and we have to always keep that in mind. Are we talking about a Shir Yom, a Kablan, or an Aris? And if one looks like the other, sometimes one is okay, sometimes the others are not. Now that's number one. And sometimes also there's a difference. These same terminologies could come into the way that the goy is approaching the makam avoda or the object that he's working with, etc. Such as, like the goy himself could also be, he could be whether he's a sachir or not, but he could be socher the sada. That's another. We don't want to confuse those two things. If he rents the field, that doesn't mean he is a sachir. It means he's renting the field. So the word schirus sometimes works the other way around, and the kabbalas agreement is always going to be between you and him on the field, and or let's say for building a house. So we'll have to see what every case is, whether he's a schir yom or a schir chodesh or schir shana, or it's going to be by the job. And similarly with the merchatz or a tanor or the mill, all these cases. Another nekuda is that the whole heter over here is only going to be, at least for the most part, everything has certain exceptions, but for the most part, the whole heter, even when there is a heter over here, is only going to be, as the Rishonim will say, b'havla. Beis Yosef speaks about it. It's going to be b'havla, meaning it's going to be agav. Shabbos is agav all the other days. There's never going to be a heter over here, almost never, when you specify that the work's going to be done on Shabbos. You specify he's working for a week or a month, and Shabbos, there's no week or no month that doesn't have a Shabbos in it. So it falls in there, but you're not specifically hiring for Shabbos. So that takes, because if it's specifically for Shabbos, that creates another problem, which is called schar Shabbos. You can't pay somebody for the work on Shabbos directly, and vice versa. They can't pay you directly for what they did on Shabbos. A lot of times the different contracts that we make with people that have businesses, the gist of the contract is that they take a non-Jewish partner and we have a star that works out that it's either sold or rented to the goy for Shabbosos and Yom Tovim, and he gets all the profits for those days. We take away the problem of schar Shabbos. It's okay that the Jew is renting his facility to him for those days as well, so he can get paid the rent for the facility, which starts before Shabbos and ends a little bit after Shabbos, so you can get paid for that rent. But so you're not considered being paid directly by the profits, but rather the rent, even though the rent amounts to the vast majority of the profits. But still, that's how we work it out in the documents. And then one last thing to keep in mind also when we approach these halachas is that we have to know always if what is usher, that when it is usher, is it usher ikar din? It's considered that it's an actual isser of those isurim of Amira La'akum with regards to contracts and employment, or really ikar din is mutter, and the only reason that Chazal or the Rishonim assered it was because of Maras Ayin. We have both categories interchangeably going on throughout these halachas. Sometimes it'll be machlokas, if a particular case is Maras Ayin or Mikra Din, and the nafkamina is that what's the din b'diavad? If it's asr mikra din, something is asr lekuli alma mikra din, then we'll see later on that if, unlike the halachas that we had until now in Mir La'akum, that things are asr only, the general case of Mir La'akum, we always said that it's asr ad b'tei shiyasu until Motzei Shabbos, the amount of time it would take and to create that thing or to go get it for you. So we never found something that's asr l'olam. Over here, we're asr, when it's asr through a contractual agreement, and it's asr mikra din, then it's asr l'olam. It's a special knas that they asr at l'olam. So here it's more stringent than the previous halachas that we learned up until now. So, okay, so now looking at the tour in Reshim Gimel Aleph starts with the sugya that we saw. Garcina Perikama David Azora Tanya Rishim Gamaliel Omer Lo Yaskir Odam Merchatzo Legoy Meshanikres Al Shmo. You can't be maskir a bathhouse to a goy because it's called the Jewish bathhouse. The goy is osaba malacha b'Shabbos. Aval sada muter, you're allowed to be maskir your sada to a goy sheken derech l'kabel sada barisus. So people are not going to be choshed you that you're paying the guy as a schir yom because the derech is that if he is working on the field, generally it's as an aris, as a sharecropper. Al pish yodim shi shel Yisrael, even though that field is well known to be a Jewish-owned field. Omrim hagoy lakra barisus, everybody will assume that he's doing the standard agreement, which is arisus, he's a sharecropper, which means that he's working a daita de nafshe, he's working the tzarach atzmai, even though the Jew gets a profit from it. Mashen came merchatz, she'ein derech la'akiro, there the derech is not by a merchatz to make a profit-sharing agreement, and therefore it looks like you are hiring him out. So there's the Isra of Marasayan. Even though the actual thing that you're doing, the actual contract that you made with him is muter me'ikar adin, but it's also because of Marasayan. Because Ramban, Tanur Yeshu Stopkimbo, Ramban there's a suffix. If a Tanur is Derech Lakiro Kamasade, Bashari, or Doma Lamerchatz Vaser. Uechriya the Isser. Ramban is Machriya Tanur is like a Merchatz. The Dafka Sade, I mean, our reluces a Kama, of a Tanur in Amid Arisus, Dinuka Merchatz. And therefore, if I feel his skir Lashana Aser, even if you did it for a year, since the derech is not to do that, then it still remains Aser. Uberechayim, no, the heter Shamdi Larisus, a mill, the minigus bimater. So now we notice, we notice here that the main discussion over here with Ramban and everything is what the derech is, meaning that the actual agreement that you're doing is really a davar mutter. If you make an agreement that if you actually do rent it out to the guy, so then when he's working totally for himself. So the Isra over here is not a shala ikra din, it's a shala of, let's say by the tanur, it's a shala of what it looks like. So it's a shala marasayin. And then the tour goes on, where Benu Hai Zal Kasav in Hiskirish Shanim Harbe and Isparsim Adabar, you did it for a number of years and it became well known, mutter, then all these cases are okay, because again, it's a shala of Regilus and Marasayan. You took away the Marasayan by making a davar mufursim for years. And no, go ahead to Babavel. And then we end off with Adoni Avriya Rosh Zal Kasav, Lefize and Isbarab and Isparsim Adabar Bachol Gvulenu, Shakol. Because of this Rav Haigon, therefore it's a davar you do it in all of our countries. Shekolni sheyesh lo merchatz otaner enu socher polim lasa malacha b'hem belkeach arevach shel rechitza afia. It's what in our where we live. So whoever has a merchatz or a tanur, you don't just hire a daily worker to work on your tanur and pay you by the day. Elam masker la'akar shana lachadashim v'davar yedua. You rent that out for a year to the guy, and he takes all the profit, and he really basically is just paying you the rent. Hilkach mutter, and our gears of the Torah is bekabalanos. That's why it's mutter also to do it bekabalanos. If you do it in making it as a kablan, meaning that the case would then be that you're paying him to run he's not renting the oven or the merchatz from you, which is the first case. The Rosh is extrapolating from that if you make him a kablan to run the tanur or to run the merchatz for, let's say, a year, that's okay. Because if that's well known that's being done, so then that takes away the problem of Marasayan. Shem malachas hagoy nikres al Shem Yisrael, because now the malacha of the goy is not called al Shem Yisrael. Everybody knows that the goy is the kabbalah doing this for a year. It was only if you're having him work for a few days, for a short period of time, so then the days do factor in over here, then that's a davar asar. Now the chiddush of this lashon over here, which Beis Yosef speaks about, to say that therefore it's mutter b'kablanos, the situation over here it's very interesting. And that's the discussion, Beis Yosef and the Maria Buav, that according to this girsa, to have a person run your business for a year, you say, I want you to be I make a contract with you to run my bathhouse for a year. So there's two ways you could look at that. The possible way to look at it would be that I'm just paying the guy for his time. I'm paying him for a year. Who cares if it's a day or a year? It's a time-based contract. It's not a product-based contract. He's not producing anything. He's not or fixing something for you. It's not a particular. I mean, I guess you could call it a service, but he's working for a year. Instead of paying him by the month or by the day, I'm just giving him one lump sum for the year. So it would be a tremendous chiddush to call that kablanis, because I'm not specifying the product, I'm specifying the time that you're working for me. Even so, this girsa holds that is called kablanis, that since the specific times are left out completely, and it's a long period of time that you're doing it, so that brings it out of the realm of a time-based contract to a kablanis-based contract. The Beis Yosef says that maybe you should be magia havla in place of kablanis. The word kablanis doesn't seem to fit in here so well, but he ends off that it is okay, because since, and that's good for the chiddush over here of the rush. Beis Yosef ends off that hilkach muchal haski, we are goris kablanis, not havla, and he says muchal haski goy v'davar yedua lachodesh kadesh yikabel olav kol malacha hatzricha v'Yisrael yutal kol harevach v'goy b'didei katarach mishum hachi shari midina v'gam mishum aras ayin leka. So since you gave him all the work, whatever has to be done in this merchatz, whether it's washing the floors, heating up the water, cleaning it out, getting the money that comes in, locking it up, opening it at the right times, all that goes into running the merchatz, this bathhouse, all those malachos are put upon him for a period of time, for like a year. So that the Beis Yosef says is considered, it's mutar me'ikar adin, because you're really being paid to do those malachos. So we're considering that a service. Basically, consider that no difference than the service of a dry cleaner. But you're paying for the service. You could say it's a little different because you're taking a particular object and it's almost like creating a product. You're creating a clean suit. But the Beis Yosef is looking at the merchatz that way also, that the product is having a working merchatz for a year, rather than paying him for a year's salary. So it's a question of how do you look at this? And also there's no problem marasayin, because everybody knows that it's called the goy, the goy is taken over. He's the address for everything that has to do with this merchatz, not the guy sitting behind the desk somewhere else who owns this place. So this will be like an exception in the category of kablanis. This is called kablanis as well, according to Beis Yosef, in this girsa of the rush. But he brings the name in the Maria Buav, Shia Shalom Arken. Shudafilu the Divya Matirin, the Socher Goy, the Davar Yedua Lasas Malachas Karkois, even those that are matir to rent out a goy to do a Davar Yedua like a Malachas Karka, that's only in a field. If you know that this field needs a certain amount of work done to it for it to produce what it needs to produce. So let's say it's plowing season. You need to properly plow the whole entire field. There's no one day you need to plow. There's over a few weeks it has to be plowed. So whether or not he works on Shabbos or not doesn't matter to the Jew who owns the field, because he knows that this guy is hired to do all that needs to be done in the field. If he doesn't do it today, I'll make sure he does it tomorrow. So nothing was lost by him not working on Shabbos. As long as the work that has to be done is going to be made up. Mashenken, something like a merchatz, every single day there's a hesed of the revach of that day. You can't say, well, he doesn't open the merchatz. He decides to just arbitrarily go on vacation for a day, and he'll come back and he'll open on Sunday. There's no way to make that up. He's supposed to work. It's supposed to be open every day, and it comes out that if he did not work on Shabbos, then that day is lost. It comes out that if he didn't work on Shabbos, it's a revach l'Yisrael. It's no difference to the goy whether he works on Shabbos. And he's getting, whether he works or not, it would seem to me they want that. We'll see a discussion about that in Magen Avraham. Let's see what happens does he lose out his pay for that day? Will it be cut off of his year salary if he has certain days that are lost, like a certain weekends he doesn't work? But the fact is that the Yisrael is nene from the fact that he works on Shabbos. He's nene from that day, as opposed to the field. That there you're a kabbalan on the field, or there you're a choker, or even if you're a kabbalan, you're getting paid for the year to do all the work of that field. So then that becomes a kabbalanus on the field, and you'll make sure the work, whatever has to be done, will be done. So nothing's lost to the Jew by not working on Shabbos. So therefore, there's no particular gain to the Jew if he does work on Shabbos. The gain is just that the overall work is done. But there's no specific gain for him working on Shabbos. That's the Maria Buav. So according to the Maria Buav, Pashtus, if you do this agreement with the merchatz, it's not only usher because of marasayin, it's usher mi'ikar din. Because this is exactly a case of hiring somebody that you're benefiting from what he does on Shabbos. So the Maria Buav is cholik over mi'ikar din. You can't be goris kablanis over here in the rush. You would have to be goris havla or something else, but there is no heter kablanis by a merchatz according to the Maria Buav. The Bach, however, has kashas on the Maria Buav. The Bach says on this Maria Buav, shgagahi shepaltasu akolnos, because he accidentally, this came out of his pen by mistake. Because if so, the rechayim, then the mill that we have, the minigis matir ba'arisus, because arisus omed, there also, if he didn't do any work on Shabbos, also the Jew would lose. So why are we not there over there to hire the guy to work on the Rechaim for a year? Now, others are cholik in this Bach and say that we don't find the heter by Rechaim either. But the Bach ends off, wherever we can say that the goy is working adaited in Avshei, he's working for himself, lo havi shlucho. He's not considered the shliach of the Yisrael. But revach the Yisrael mamelik asi. We didn't shower the kuliyama. So it's not considered directly to be marviach on Shabbos, but the goy is considered working for himself, and he's marviach. The difference he gives to the Jew, that's called revach de mamela. But it's not, he wasn't your shliach. We spoke about this in previous year, that one of the problems of all these halachas are shlichos of the Yisrael. Here, you're not the shliach of the Yisrael, you're shliach of yourself. The goy has a year's work to do on this merchatz. So the fact that the Yisrael's netnet from that day doesn't become a problem. It doesn't take away from the fact that the goy is a daitet and avshei avid. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's doing what he needs to do to keep his job. So we have a very interesting major machlokas going on over here in the poskim, and whether or not there is a heter of kablanus. Heter of kablanus is considered a contractual agreement for something like a merchatz. We understand how there's a contractual agreement to tailor a suit, or to make shoes for you, or even to build a house. We might have other problems with building a house, but it's still the job is not by the hour, by the day, but to build a house. The shayla is if somebody is not building a house, they're not creating a product, but they're working on something which is keeping your business going, is that considered like a wage to be working on Shabbos, and therefore you're nender from the fact of Shabbos that it's doing on Shabbos, or is it considered like also a contractual thing to be just doing? And the contract is like washing, like cleaning a suit, cleaning your shirts, so keeping this going is also like that is a type of a product that he's creating for you. And what's factoring in over here is, and the poskim seem to be say it's totally habaha, that the fact that unlike the suit or unlike the shirt or even the house, the days don't play into it. And as long as it has to be done, it'll be done. And whether you work on Shabbos or a different day, you'll make up for it. The fact that you can't make up for Shabbos, and the Jew is going to lose if he doesn't work on Shabbos and benefits if he does. So does that make it different or not? Maria Buav says it makes it different, and therefore it's Aser Meikar Din. And the Bach, the Beis Yosef, who is considering it okay, and the Bach that answers up is considered a Daita Nafshe, are saying that the fact that the Jew is Nena does not make a difference. This doesn't create a problem.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
Regarding the Maria Buav, who says it's Aser by the Merchatz, I mean, what type of revach what type of hana is there for the Jew? Is it really in the realm of like positive hana that we spoke about, or it's just getting, it's silka mafria? You could view it like that, can't you?
I'm sorry, it's what?
Can't you view it as like the Jew, by the guy working in there, it's preventing the Jew a loss? So you're right, he's gaining, but maybe that's not in the realm of positive hana that we're going to aser.
Well, here you don't need the kind of positive hana that we needed over there, hanas gufo, by the regular mir la'akum, like we saw in Tosas over there, and the chiluk between the cases of the or and the deleka. That was just regular mir la'akum. When it comes to hiring and skiriyom and these type of things, the hana the Yisrael doesn't have to be hanas gufo. It's just the fact he's getting hana that his merchatz is making money on Shabbos. He's paying the goy for $10,000 for the year, regardless of how much it makes, the merchatz makes. He has no real control over that, but for sure he's going to recoup a lot of his what he has to pay the goy at the end of the year if Shabbos are open, or it's a day that's open. If it's closed, then he has a lot less revach to pay the goy and to walk away with. So that's considered hana from Shabbos regarding these halachas. And now we take a look at, and again to this machlokas, the Maria Buav, the Magen Avram. We have over here that the Shulchan Aruch Paskins and Rishon Gimel Sif Aleph brings all these halachos down. Lo yasker adam merchatz shelo la'akum, because it's nikra al shmo, and the goy is doing it for you. Stam merchatz lav la'risas avid. You say all the revach is Yisrael, and the sachar is akum kaf akat. Everybody will see that. Will assume that you hire the guy for his daily wage. Nimsa sha'akum oset. What it looks like to people, Marasayan is that you hire the guy and to work daily, and you're doing your shtickles. Aval sadeh mutter. Sadeh is different. Sheken derech lekabel sadeh barisas, because the derech is that the worker doesn't work as a daily worker, he works as an aris, a sharecropper. That's the derech. Al pish yodim shehu shel Yisrael. Nobody will be kosher to you that you're hiring him as a daily worker, because they'll assume that you're doing what the derech is, to do it as an aris. He's working for himself. That's the Shulchan Aruch. So this heter study there, Magen Avram says, the dafka k'shenosan la'akum chelik v'peris. He has to receive it. You can't be paying him for it, even as a aris or however you're going to pay the guy. You pay him also as if you're maskir the study to him. So he has to get paid by the peris. He seems to be machmir like the shitas haram, etc. Now he goes on to say, "Uba merchatz asa medina liskor la'akum la'avoid bo kol hashana v'shiyutal yehudi kol harevach v'kol hashabbasos." The merchatz, it's not aser only because of Marasayan, it's aser medina, ikra din. to rent it to a goy, to work there kol hashana. Actually, I'm sorry, you're not renting it to a goy. You're paying the goy to work there the whole year. Shitol Yehudi kol harevach mikol hashabasos. In other words, you're paying him to work for a year. You get all the revach. The Yisrael gets all the revach. Yehudi marviach masha'akim osa b'Shabbos, because you are marviach from what happens on Shabbos. But lekal ameimar da'akim adaita denafshei avid, and you can't say that the goy is working for himself. That day is working on Shabbos is for himself. Why? Magen Avraham says a strange thing. He sort of interjects a nekuda that we don't see in the Maria Buav himself. He's saying this in the name of the Maria Buav, but he interjects another nekuda here in the Magen Avraham. Ta'af in lo yaseh akam b'Shabbos yisarf l'shalom lo. Ein sim rishon adal sifei. That since the Jew has to pay him, even if he doesn't work on Shabbos, you have just a set amount to pay him over the year, so you're not really cheshboning in the days. Then it comes out that the goy is not really gaining by the fact that he's working on Shabbos. He'll have his job one way or the other. He'll get paid the same one way or the other. So why is he working on Shabbos then? You have to say that he's working for the sake of the Jew. He's doing it to help out the Jew. And you become like a shliach for the Yisrael, for the malach that's being done on Shabbos. That's what the Magen Avraham seems to be saying. Now this last nekuda is the Magen Avraham seems to be saying this to answer the time of the Bach. Right? The Maria Buav said that the Yisrael's nene from the Malach of Shabbos. On that, the Bach asked that why is that a problem that the Jews being nene? We find many times the Jews nene, as long as the goy Iker is doing it adayta nafshei, doing it for himself, and the Revach Mamela comes to the Yisrael, so that he's not a shliach of the Yisrael. Whatever is dayta nafshei takes away the shlichus of the Yisrael, and it's not asur Iker din anymore. It's just a question of getting the schar, and as long as the schar is b'havla, it's not being specifically for Shabbos, then even though the Jew is being nene from the Malach of Shabbos, that shouldn't bother us. That was the time of the Bach. So Magen Avraham is coming to try to put together a couple things here. He's saying that the halacha is like the Maria Buav, that it's asur mikra din to pay him to work all year if you're going to be marviach, you're getting the schar for the Shabbos because you're nene from that. You want to tie it data nafshei? No, it's not data nafshei because he's going to get the same amount of pay anyway, manashach, and therefore he must be that he's doing it for you, not for himself. So it takes away the heter of adaitiv nafshei, and it comes back the isser of being nene from what happens on Shabbos. It's considered like schar Shabbos for you, or like your shlichus for Shabbos. That's what the Magen says. And the Pri Megadim time is that how can you make an assumption that he's not going to the goy is going to be paid the same even if he doesn't work on Shabbos? If he's paid to work for a year, he has to work for a whole year. If the Jew finds out that there's days he skipped, he's for sure going to detract those days from his yearly wage. Shulchan Aruch says even more that al pi choshen mishpat, you hire him for a year, he can't just take off a day. So what does Magen Avraham mean that even if he doesn't work for a day, then he's still going to be paid the same, and therefore it's not a daita nafshei. Bishlema, if he's going to lose out that day if he doesn't work, so you can say, okay, he has to work that day. That's mamash daita nafshei. He doesn't want to lose his anything. He doesn't want anything docked off of his eventual pay at the end of the year. But if he's going to get paid anyway, mechatesi. That's a kasha of the Pri Megadim. So the Pri Megadim holds that the problem over here, therefore, must have nothing to do with the fact that if he's going to get paid or not paid if he doesn't work for a day. That's not the cheshbon over here. It's just that it's not a daita nafshei. The Maria Buav holds that if you're getting paid for a year, but the Jew is gaining from whatever happens every Shabbos, since it's not a contractual thing on a particular item, So then that is called Schar Shabbos, and you're shliach for the Jew throughout the entire year, and it's Asur Mikra Din, without any relationship to whether you're going to get paid or not, or doctor or not, if you don't work for a day. That's what Pri Megadim times on Magen Avraham. The Vushei Srad here on the Shulchan Aruch answers the Magen Avraham from the Taina of the Pri Megadim. He says that Magen Avraham didn't mean to say he can just take off days that he's supposed to take off. He means that if he's there to work and he's there to heat up the merchatz, if there are any bathers, any goyish bathers come along that want to use it, then he'll oblige and he's there, he's ready. But nobody showed up today. They put out ads, nobody came, so he doesn't have to heat it up. He doesn't have to do anything today. He doesn't have to work. Even though he didn't work, still he's going to get paid for that day. So the fact that he went out of his way to try to find somebody to come in and heat it up for them, if he went out of his way to do it, so then that's what the Magen Avraham means, that it's considered a daita to Yisrael, not a daita to Nasheh. He is not obligated to go, and if nobody shows up, he doesn't have to go and stand outside and yell for a center, in the corner. He can just sit inside and wait if anybody comes. Nobody comes, he doesn't have to work. He can read a book. The fact that he does, if he does go out there and do it, so then that won't be docked from his pay. He's not doing anything wrong. In a Hanami, if he just doesn't show up, then in a Hanami it'll be docked from him. So that's the pshat in Magen Avraham, that he means it's a daita nasheh to misalach the taina of the Bach on the Maria Buav, that in a Hanami, when it really is a daita nasheh, then there's no problem with the fact that Yisrael's netted from it, because that's only agav, that's only memela. But over here, it's considered not a daita nasheh, it's a daita to Yisrael, because he doesn't gain anything himself by going out there and looking for somebody to heat it up for. That's the Vushei Srad. However, the Mishnah Berurah, in Sivkat and Yud, the way he quotes the Magen Avraham, he passes his Magen Avraham, not like the Beis Yosef, he passes the Chomer like the Magen Avraham, like the Maria Buav. By the way, you see this name, Maria Buav. So, who in the world is the Maria Buav? We're making a pretty big deal out of the Maria Buav. Who was he? He was the Rebbe of the Mari Rav, who was one of the Rebbeim of the Beis Yosef. He was one of the Gedolim in Spain at that time, in Castile, at the end of the time of the Inquisition, like the end of Chachmei Castile, and he was considered one of the Gedolei Ador in that period of one of the ones that fought against the Inquisition and everything. So he was the Mari Rav was the one who reinstituted Smicha. He got together Kol Chachmei Yisrael and reinstituted Smicha, because the Rambam says you have Kol Chachmei Yisrael together, or Rubam, then you can reinstitute the real Smicha. And Beis Yosef was one of 4 that got that Smicha. It's mamish like Mina Shamayim. You see that the author of the Shulchan Aruch should get real Smicha. It ended after that one time because the Radvaz strongly disagreed with the whole thing. He was cholak on the whole thing, and he stayed away, and he held that since he's not there, you don't have Kol Chachmei Yisrael. So he passled the whole thing by not coming. That's what he held. The Mari Rav held there was enough to have Rubam, so there still was a smicha, but because of the Radvaz, Kol Radvaz was bottled. But the Mari Rav was the one who gave that smicha to the Beis Yosef and 3 others, and the Maria Buav was his Rebbe. Just to put it a little in perspective. So the Shembrua Pasans Magen Avraham was going like the Mari Rav. By the Maria Buav, Rabbi Yitzchak Buav, and but the Mishnah Berurah only quotes the reason that is because you're Mavia Kol Yom, that the Goy works. You're Nenem from Melech Shabbos. You're Makpid on every day the guy should work. So that would seem to be like the Pashas the Maria Buav, before the Magen Avraham added in the extra nakuda of the fact that getting paid or not paid, and in days he doesn't work. Mishnah Berurah leaves that part of the Magen Avraham out. So in the Shar Tzion, in Sivkat and Yadalid, he addresses this point and says that the Magen Avraham that says the reason because even if he doesn't work, they need to get paid, he says, "Ein tam ze ikr." This is not really the ikr thing, and based on the Pri Megadim, that mechatesi shouldn't have to work. You should get paid the same if he doesn't, whether it works or not. It's not about that. And he says, look at the Levushe Srad in Sarach Iyun. So he basically, in a few words, summarizes this whole discussion, and he puts that whole thing to bed to say that, it's Sarach Iyun, but the Maisa, the Yisod of the Maria Abuav is the way it's stated in the Maria Abuav before the Magen Avraham interjected this extra Nakuda. So the Shabura just holds that the Bach's kasha is not a kasha. Since you are makbid on every day that he works, so then it's not considered a daita de nafshe of the goy. It's a daita de Israel. You're makbid on every day, therefore it's like he's like your shliach every day, and it's asur. So it would seem to me now comes out of machlokas and Shabura and the Lush Yisrad and Pshat in a Smagan Aram or in this halacha and Yabuv. I was thinking enough kamina in this between this machlokas, but at the end I'm not sure if it's really not enough kamina. Or to think of a different enough kamina. But I'll just tell you the case the poskim speak about. There's a very chashuv sefer on all these halachas called Commerce on Shabbos. Very, very kedai sefer to get. It's I forgot the name. Shurkin or something. I forgot his name. He's a son-in-law of Shlomo Miller from Toronto. He quotes his father-in-law a lot in the sefer. A lot of psukim. So he especially in the beginning of the sefer, he summarizes the halachas very, very nicely and very clear. So he over there discusses a shaila of a Jewish-owned website, very common shaila. You have a Jewish-owned website that does commerce, and it's a Shomer Shabbos owner, so he hires a call center to provide customer service support, and they offer the customer service support all weekend as well as Shabbos. It's a Goyish company, he hires them, that if people are just buying and selling off the website, which that itself we hold is okay. That's a whole separate shiloh we're not going to go through right now, but that's where it's a machlok sachronim on that. There's rayas from Machuas from Kiveger that it should be usher to do that, but there's a shoot Marashag, who was one of the Talmudim okay, just popped out of my head. In Poland. I'll come back to me in a minute. The Maram Shik, the Talmud of the Maram Shik, Marashag, who is called very strongly and brings many, many rayas. His case over there, he obviously didn't have a website 100 and whatever years ago, but he's talking there about there was a newfangled thing that came out. It was called a candy machine. He describes it that you have a box and you have candy, you have chocolate inside and other sweets inside, and you put in money and you pull a slot and the money thing comes out. So if it's a Jewish-owned thing, you put it in Rishus Rabbim, and it's not so obvious if it's Jewish or not, and it's not like coming from your house. So over there, he has an arichos to be cholek and rikuveger, and is mattered that as long as it's you have no yad on that, you're not participating in it. You're completely being shomer Shabbos, and your machine is just being used. So if we pass on like this hill that you don't have to have shvisas kalim, then there's no problem with that. The fact that Goy comes and puts a quarter in and takes out food. So the website is no different than that. Website is a glorified candy machine. It's sitting out there and it's just around him. It's up online. And a Goy can go on there and order something. And according to the Marashag, that's not a problem. However, a lot of times these websites need customer support. Things could go wrong. So you're not going to be involved with that in the week either. So you hire a customer service company to support the call center, and they get paid by the week, regardless of how many calls they receive. If they get no calls, if they get 100 calls, they get paid a weekly amount in order to field the calls that come from your website. So what he discusses there is that since the Goyish company has no gain whether or not they receive any calls on Shabbos. They're going to get paid the same whether they get no calls or they get many calls. So the fact that they take the calls on Shabbos, he wants to say that according to the Levushay Srad, since the Jew has to pay him, even if there is no phone calls on Shabbos, the fact that he takes the phone calls on Shabbos is considered it's considered a daita. It's not a daita nafshe, it's a daita de goy because he gets no gain from that. So Mela, so according to the Svara, Levushay Srad, the way he's explaining the Magen Avram, it takes it out of the realm of a daita de nafshe and it puts it back to daita de Yisrael, and that's a problem. That becomes a problem. So he says the only way that there should be a heter, the only tzad heter would be if they get a certain amount per call. Maybe they get one overall wage, but they get an additional amount per call. To take that call, then becomes a daita de nafshe. That's his psak. Now, I didn't go through it yet. Somebody gave me a package of letters, a masa matan between the author of this sefer, who also this call center, and Pesach Eliyahu Falk Zatzal from Gateshead, the Machzeh Eliyahu, took issue with the way he's learning shot in the Maria Buav and this whole thing. So I'm hoping to get through that, and I can then report to you if there's any difference, if it comes out differently or not. I seem to be cholik on this and hold that it should be mutter anyway. I'm not quite sure why yet, so I'll have to see. But in this sefer, that's the way he paskins. Only if they're going to get paid per call, then it becomes a daita de nafshe and becomes a heter. So first I thought maybe according to the Mishnah Berurah it should be mutter, but the Maisa Mishnah Berurah it really should come out to be the same thing. If you totally take out the fact that whether they're going to get paid or not, whether they get any calls, as long as they're on call, whether they get calls, but they're on call. The Mishnah Berurah takes that whole perspective out of it, and right now the Maisa, you can hear that the Jew is going to gain from the fact that the goy works for him on Shabbos, because if he doesn't take those calls, then you might lose the sale to your website. He's having trouble making a sale. He's having trouble making a purchase, so the call center is going to walk him through it. So now he can make the purchase he wants to make. Can't get through anybody, he'll probably just give up and go to another website. So the Jew's being nana from the fact that this call center is working on Shabbos, is getting direct enough from it, and you're makbid that they work on Shabbos. This call center is paid by the week, and even though you didn't specify Shabbos, for sure, if you find out that they shut down on Shabbos, you're going to for sure dock them what you're paying them per week if they didn't work on Shabbos. So you are makbid, and you're nene, and you lose out if you don't. So the whole you have all the ingredients of the Maria Buav to say that it should be a problem, unless, like the Sefer says, that you're going to give them a certain amount. You make it a part of the agreement that you'll give them a certain extra amount per call that they take. On top of that, then that becomes a daita du day, and a daita nafshe.
Rebbe.
Yeah.
Don't you have a separate issue of Lifnei Iver by having your website running or your candy machine? Isn't that a separate issue that would be relevant?
Because Jews might go on it? Yeah, so it's that if you get into that, we'll see where Moshe actually has a tube about that, and we'll talk about something coming up about having a house being built by a Jewish contractor. But Lifnei Iver means that without your site, you couldn't get it anywhere else. You have nowhere else to go. It has to be Trey Iver de Nar. So it'd be probably a rare product unless you have some really, really specific item that nobody else has, and they couldn't get it anywhere else. But a general website that they have other choices where to get it from, and you hope they get it from you, that's not Lifnei Iver. They can get it somewhere else. So Elawat, maybe you're considered Messiah. Messiah is an Isser D'Rabbanan. Even when you don't have Lifnei Iver, you still sometimes have an Isser Messiah, which is an Isser D'Rabbanan. But there's a famous Shach and Dagam Ravava and Yaradea Kufnun Aleph that hold that if someone is a mumar, if they're a mumar l'chal Shabbos, they're doing chal Shabbos all the time, then there's no Isser Derbaner Messiah for them either. So that all that falls off. Okay. So now, in final analysis, so we're saying that this Isser of the Schiras of a Merchatz, if you're paying the guy by the month or by the year, is Asr according to the Maria Buav. So the way the Magen Avraham clearly says that it's Asr Me'ikar Din. Maria Buav is Asr Me'ikar Din. The Taz in Sefkat and Aleph holds that the fact that you're not paying by the day, you're paying by the year, takes it out of the realm of Schir Yom, and it takes it out of the realm of Asr Me'ikar Din. It only remains an Isser of Marasayan. So this whole problem of Maria Buav is a Yisodis to Kamachogos in the Magen Avraham and the Taz, whether it's a Maras Ayin problem and it's Mutter Me'ikar Din, or it's like the Magen Avraham says, it's an Ikar Din problem. And Nafkamina as B'diavad, like we mentioned before, if B'diavad, if it's done, is it considered Schar Shabbos and Asr, or is it just you're over an Isser Maras Ayin, but the B'diavad is Mutter? In the Mishnah Berurah, there's Paskin, like the Magen Avraham, so we know the halacha, we have to take on that it's also Me'ikar Din. Mishnah Berurah says, okay, so going on to the next point, the Mishnah Berurah says there that it's going to be Asr, like the Maria Buav, like the Magen Avraham, unless the Goy has Ktsas Chelik B'Rivchei Shabbos. And then it's considered that Tanashay. Like we said, like the call center gets a little bit of money for each call. So what is called Ktsas Chelik? That's Lashon Mishnah Berurah, it's quite good, is you need Ktsas Chelik, a little bit of a Chelik in what, in the Revach of that day, for the Goy to get, to make it a Daita Nafshay. How much Revach, how much is Ktsas, what does that mean in order to take it out of the realm of just a Shliach of the Goy and become a Daita Nafshay? So this is Shalan Poskim. The Nodib Yehuda says it's enough if he receives Pruta Achas from the Revach. He only gets one Pruta from what's the Revach of Shabbos, then he gets something out of it. Then it's not considered anymore just the Shlichus of Israel. It's considered a Daita Nafshay. Chassam Sofer holds that that's not called Revach. That's not enough to take you out of the realm of what you're doing to make it a Daita Nafshay. It has to be duya to Chakiras, that we say that like a sharecropper that he gets mechsa shlitz ravia, you get a certain percentage out of it. It might not have to be a real lot, but it's something not totally insignificant in order to take it out of the realm of shlichos to Israel to make it daita nafshay. The fact that the Mishnah Berurah says the lashon tzas chelik, even though it's not a rye, but it sounds a little bit more like he's holding like Chassam Sofer. He doesn't. He could have just said, like a mashahu or pruta achas. But the tzas chelik sounds a little more like Chassam Sofer. That you need to get some kind of percentage out of it in order to make it daita nafshay. And the Chassam Sofer says another thing, that if the let's say it's a merchatz, and the owner tells the goy that I get all the revach, but I'm paying you. You get, if you work on Shabbos, then you get to have a free bath in the merchatz. I'm going to be real generous. I'm going to give you a free bath. All right. So the Chassam Sofer says that also is also that's not considered a really getting daita nafshay, that because going past the value of that rachitza, everything else he's doing really for the sake of the Yisrael. It has to be ongoing. All the ravachim that you get that day has to be a certain amount that you're getting, a percentage whatever out of all that revach in order to make it different. Now, Rav Moshe has a tshuva. It's in Chelik Daled Siman Nun Gimel. It's a very kedai tshuva to see inside because he really goes through this whole sugya very well. It's not a long tshuva, but it's a very basic tshuva. Orach Chaim Chelik Daled Siman Nun Gimel. There he's talking about a bank. If somebody owns a bank, and it's a Jewish-owned Shomer Shabbos bank, and the bank owner is concerned that somebody could theoretically get a hold of a checkbook from someone from his bank and go to another bank and write a huge check. And since that banks usually don't honor the check unless they have an electronic system, whatever, they check back with your bank to make sure that there's coverage for that check. But since this is a bank in England, the bank would be closed on Shabbos, there'd be no way for the other banks to check it, so they would just honor the check. And then there could be a tremendous hesed for their bank that they have to now honor that check. It was falsified. So there could be a tremendous loss over here. If you have some rubo, if there's not some way to have somebody working in his bank in order to verify or disqualify any check that comes in, to be able to answer back to the other banks. So Moshe there speaks about you can make it into a kiboilus. You can make it into a kablanus with the goyish worker in the bank, to say that besides he gets paid a certain amount for working every day, and you'll just tell him to work an extra day, work on Shabbos also. But you have to add a certain amount that he'll get for every check that he processes, every call that he gets, and every check that he processes. If he gets something for that, so then he's considered a daited nafshe, which is a big heter. Remember, Moshe says it's a tremendous heter because this is different than every other kabbalanus. We said in the Hagdama that every kabbalanus, right, every contractual agreement, one of the reasons that it's mutter, like let's say to tailor your suit, is because you did not specify and you don't care whether they do it on Shabbos or not, as long as they get the suit done. And here you're clearly specifying to the goy you want it to be there on Shabbos. So where Moshe says that since sof kol sof, in Ikra din, it's not a problem. In Ikra din, he's really working at daited nafshe. He wants to field calls because he gets paid more for it. So he's not doing it as a shliach on the Jew, but there's an element of a daited nafshe. So then the fact that it's on Shabbos is more of a maris ayin problem. But still, sof kol sof, it should take away some of the heter of kabbalanus. But he says that since it's makom hefsem ruba, since we're solving the direct shlichus problem by making him getting schar for each check, and it comes out that nafshe, then the hefsem ruba will be a reason. It will be a seed between mater, this over here, to mater him to work. Okay. Going on to Rishon Gimel Sif Beis. Sif Beis, he says, "A few merchatz otanor in iskiram shana achar shana and isparsam v'davar aydekach." Even a merchatz or a tanor, since the whole reason that we said of a merchatz or tanor, if you actually rent it to them, you're not paying them as a yearly wage, but they are renting it from you. That's different. When they rent it from you, then you're no longer paying any wage. All they're doing is they're paying you rent, and they're taking all the revach. But that's still, we said it's usher because it's not the derech, and people think that you're hiring them. However, if it's misparsam adavar year after year that you rent it out, and you're not masker poelim, or the Shulchan Aruch says if the minig rov anshi osa makam to rent them out, or to give it out by risus, to give it out as a contract, as a how do you say a good word for it? I guess it would be make a profit sharing agreement. So then, in those situations, that since the minig of the malkum is to rent them out, then these are all okay. Okay, so then on that the Mishavura says in Sufkat Yud Beis, in the name of the Beis Yosef, that okay, I'm sorry. We'll go a little further in the Shulchan Aruch, then we'll talk. The Ramah adds to this, and Sif Beis says that even in a place that it's usher, that's only if it's Nikra al Shem Yisrael. Those places that it's usher, that you do not did not yet become the minig amakom, whatever. That's if it's nikra al shmo. But let's say if you rented it from a goy and turned around and rented it to another goy, so the fact that you're the middleman in this whole agreement, but it was never nikra al shem Yisrael, and there's no problem. Why? Because it says ein shem Yisrael nikra alav. Or Zarua, and then there's a goyim that whenever you don't have a shem Yisrael on it, then there's no problem with Marasayan. So, okay, so the first part of it we already really spoke about, the derech and not the derech. Now the second part of this Nukuda Dharma, the Mishnah Berurah says in the end of the Beis Yosef that not only the Ramah talks about a case of schiris, I rented it from a goy, and then I turned around and rented it out to another goy. So I'm just the guy sitting in an office, in a rental office, and I'm making a revach on that, but nobody that goes in or goes out knows that it belongs to me. So the Mishnah Berurah says, "Who again if I purchased it, right? If my office in New York purchased an office building in Taiwan, and then I turned around and rented out all those offices to, or I rented out the building to another Taiwanese company that's going to be renting out all the individual things. So even though I'm the owner now of that building, but it was never Nikra al Shem Yisrael. And there's no problem with that. Another Nakuda in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says that if it was the Sparsem Shana Achar Shana, it became well known year after year that a Jew rents it out to Goyim and he doesn't hire people to work there. The Shevet HaLevi, it's in Chelek Tes Siman Gimel, says that you can bypass the year after year by putting out something like if an ad goes in the newspapers that you're renting it out. So then that's even better than Shana Achar Shana, for the word just to get out slowly by word of mouth. You actually put it out there, Rosh Hashanah, put something in the newspapers. That's what's happening. So then that also takes away the Marasayan. And nobody will be choshed you that you're renting day workers anymore for Shabbos. Now the Ramah says at the end of the Sif, if you rented it out in a place that it is Asr, Yesh Omrim Sheshchar Mutter, Yesh Omrim She'asr. It brings machlokas the Beis Yosef and the Goyim and the Mordechai, that and the Ramah sides with the second shita. Sounds like some say that the schar is mutter. You can b'diavad is mutter if you're over it. The isser you're over, but you can be b'diavad binen from it. And some say that it's asr. So that on this machlokas, so the Mishnah Berurah brings in the name of the Achronim that there really is no machlokas, and it all really just depends. Like the usual Jewish answer, it depends. That if like we mentioned already in the beginning, if what you did is asr mi'ikra din, then it's also asr. But if it's only asr mitzad marasayin, then the schar is mutter. So it's not really a machlokas. They're just talking about different cases. The one that says this asr is talking about in a case where it was asr mi'ikra din, you're over that, so then you can't be nana from it. Like we're going to see later on that in Reish Mem Daled Tzipbeis, that if you were over the isser of having somebody work on a binyan, even if they chiseled the stones somewhere else, then asr l'shaka b'binyan, you can't put it back into the binyan. It's asr forever. That's because you're over the ikra din. As a din like mechuber, so you're over an ikra din. But if you're just over an isser marasayin, so then the schar is mutter b'diavad. And just again pointing out, like we did in the beginning, we see over here that the schiras of akum is much more stringent than a regular dinim of Amir akum that we had way back in the beginning. Because over there we only had an isser b'chtei shiyasu. Here they made a knas to make it asr la'olam. We see this also later on in Reish Mem Hey Sif Vav, that if a goy baked pas with the goy in a Yisrael's tanur in a way that was asr to have him do that, Mikra din, then the pas is asr la'olam. It's Shulchan Aruch Harav in Sifyot Tes says that the pas is asr la'olam, not just b'ftei shiyasu. So see again, because when it involves Schiris, there's extra knossos because I'll put on it to make it Asr Olam. Okay, now we go on to what time it is. Oh wow. I was going to go on to Reish Mem Daled, but I guess we'll wait till next time. It's going to be a little too much to talk about now. Wow, okay. Should we do it, or is it too much probably?
Yeah, I kind of have to run.
Yeah, I think we'll do this next time. I think we'll do a little too much to absorb. And my throat's giving out also, my voice is giving out. Okay, so next time we'll see exactly when we'll meet next. We out of town next weekend, and we have Hanukkah coming up, but we'll figure something out. It's fun.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos, take care. Kol tov.